Our approach to managing the borders securely and humanely, even within our fundamentally broken immigration system, is working. Americans are safer today on the border, in the air, at sea, across the country, and around the world because of the Department of Homeland Security.
My Republican colleagues claim that the border is open. Is the border open, Mr. Secretary?
No, it is not.
DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas testifying on Capitol Hill last month, grilled by House Republicans and Democratic lawmakers on the Biden administration's approach toward the U.S. southern border. Mayorkas denying that it was open, saying the president's plan at the border is working.
We welcome in U.S. Senator from Oklahoma, James Lankford, who sits on the Senate Homeland Security Committee. Senator, good to see you. We appreciate your time.
Good to see you.
As you've heard again from that testimony, the secretary was asked if the border was open. He responds with, "No, it is not." What is your reaction?
So his statement of the border is open is that we still have Border Patrol that are there that are having to act as hotel check-in staff at this point, that when people cross the border, we check them in, release them into the country immediately. So I think it's a definitional issue. Of course, the Border Patrol will tell you the border is secure. It's just secure on the south side of the border. The cartels dominate and control that border, and they will control who actually crosses the border from south to north. And then we're actually processing those folks and releasing them into the country almost immediately now into the country. And Ali Mayorkas and DHS has changed the way that they're counting people, saying if you'll check in on an app first, we don't count you as an illegal crossing, and then they announce that their numbers are way down. But it is frankly the same. If you check in the app, if you cross the border without doing the app, you're still released into the country. You're still here for 5 to 10 years before you get a court hearing. Nothing is really different.
Yeah. These Border Patrol agents overwhelmed, quite frankly, with the sheer influx of migrants that are coming across, so much so that Republican states have sent National Guard's troops to assist law enforcement personnel, including, sir, from your home state of Oklahoma. We just heard from the governor, Kevin Stitt. He said, yes, we feel the need to send these guardsmen because this is so necessary. The federal government is not responding. What's been your experience, of course, interacting with these troops? Are they ready and willing to serve in this capacity?
The 50 Oklahoma National Guards, folks that left with Task Force Minuteman this past weekend, they're there at the border right now in El Paso. They not only volunteered, they eagerly volunteered to be able to do this duty. They want to be a part of protecting our nation's security in the days ahead. That's why they're so passionate about doing this task. And so, yes, I'm grateful for them and for their service and the National Guard as a whole. But clearly in this particular mission, I would say when I talk to Border Patrol folks that are on the border, they're grateful for the National Guard actually being there, for the Texas National Guard that's been there for a long time, because they increase their manpower for them. While the cartels will send across folks to request asylum, then they'll actually go 2 or 3 miles upriver, downriver, through the desert, and they'll shoot across folks with camouflage and backpacks and bring in drugs. When the National Guard is there, it is a force multiplier for them to get into some of those areas that they can't get into as they're doing a humanitarian mission with other folks. So the Border Patrol is very grateful for the presence of the National Guard, and these National Guard folks are ready to be able to step up, protect our country from drugs, from human trafficking, and quite frankly, just help protect our nation from security risks that we don't know from people crossing into our country.
I want to move on to a different topic, and really this one about the makeup of the Senate. And some of this is obviously a sensitive material, if we will, in terms of, again, the makeup of the Senate, the age of those that are serving. We've seen some issues lately. I wanted to show you some of these and perhaps get your response. And there are several, but this is Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. We've seen this, him freezing up mid-sentence at the podium. He's fine now, according to, again, him and his staff. But this is what happened for those that haven't seen it. Here's that.
This week has been good bipartisan cooperation and a string of
Wait a minute. Are you good? Mitch?
Okay, Mitch?
He's checking.
Anything else you want to say, or should we just go back to your office? Do you want to say anything else to the press?
And obviously a very disturbing moment to watch for really anyone. But it didn't stop there. Senator Dianne Feinstein appearing confused on a vote recently, needing help from staff. And here's this moment.
Senator Feinstein. Say aye.
Pardon me?
Aye.
Yeah.
Just say
I would like to support a yes vote on this. It provides $823 billion. That's an increase of $26 billion for the Department of Defense. And it funds priorities submitted.
yeah. Just say aye.
Okay, just aye.
So we're talking about the upper chamber here, and while it's a sensitive topic, it leaves Americans wondering, should there be age limits to this? Should there be cognitive tests or, medical examinations? And the one that stood out the most, and most recently, obviously, would be Senator Mitch McConnell, the minority leader, sir. What is your comment on that disturbing moment?
Yeah, it's a painful medical moment for Senator McConnell. Obviously, he was able to come back to that press conference after a moment, and we don't know what that episode was. Obviously not his physician, but he was able to come back, finish out the press conference, answer questions, continue to do the work that he needed to be able to do to be able to finish out the rest of the week. He was voting, he was on the floor, all of those things. So I pray for Mitch McConnell and Dianne Feinstein, for all of them and for their health, obviously. But the issue with the Senate is whether you're John Fetterman and having medical issues when you're younger, or whether you're Mitch McConnell or Dianne Feinstein having medical issues when you're older, or John McCain when he was going through this very traumatic brain cancer as well. Those are moments that the voters of each state actually decide rather than anyone else. If we get into a situation where senators jump in and say, hey, I don't think you're qualified anymore, I'm going to be able to push you out, that's a very different setup for the Senate. It takes away the power of the voters. The voters in those states actually determine who represents them, and they'll continue to be able to make that decision. That's a protected right of our republic.
Yeah, your point is well taken, sir, and I fully understand what you're saying here. I would argue that the media coverage of some of these candidates, or lack thereof, the lack of transparency when it comes to, candidates' health, even along the campaign trail, you might think you're voting for someone, and then you realize, oh my goodness, this person's in much worse shape than I thought because no one told me about it. So that's maybe a comment for another day, unless you wanted to address that.
No, other than to say I'm feeling fine and doing very well. So thank you.
Okay, good to know that update there. If we could move on to, again, a story based out of your home state. This is kind of fascinating here. The idea of public funding for religious schools. Oklahoma's doing something a little different. They've got a religious charter school, a virtual one. It's a Catholic-based school. And Kevin Stitt, the governor, wants to see, again, public funds go to it, but now it's being challenged, legally so, by the Oklahoma Parent Legislative Action Committee, blocking it, again, saying it's a violation of separation of church and state. How do you view this plan, again, to fund a virtual charter school with public funds?
Well, let me just begin with the most basic principle. I always smile when someone says, hey, I'm protecting the rights of individuals, the separation of church and state, because I laugh and think that's actually not a constitutional right. The separation of church and state language is actually coming from a letter that was written in the 1800s protecting churches from the state. So the United States Constitution protects the rights of individuals to have a faith, but also protects the right to saying we don't have an established religion. What the state of Oklahoma is doing at this point is they're trying to follow a Supreme Court decision from 2017, I believe, called Trinity Lutheran. In that decision, a Lutheran church was trying to participate in a state program that at that point was a scrap tire program for their school, and they were prohibited from getting it. And what was argued was the state of Missouri said, well, you're religious, you can't have it. That went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled in a 7-2 decision overwhelmingly to say the state doesn't have to do a scrap tire program, but if they do, they can't discriminate against individuals of faith. They have to have it open to everyone. They can't discriminate. What the state of Oklahoma is doing at this point is saying, hey, we have a charter school program. Catholic program has requested to be able to do a charter program. We don't, as a state, have to do charter schools, but we can't discriminate a Catholic program if they choose to be able to request that. I do expect this will go all the way back to the Supreme Court again. I do expect them to follow the same ruling they did in 2017 to say the state doesn't have to have this program, but if they do, they can't discriminate against any faith, whether it's a Muslim school request, a Catholic school request, a Jewish school request, doesn't matter. If they have it open to everybody, they have to have it open to everybody.
All right, that is U.S. Senator from Oklahoma, James Lankford. Senator, thank you for your time. Good to see you. We appreciate it.
Good to see you again.